Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in Missouri with Dr. Danielle Angela. Dr. Danielle, can you just introduce yourself and reflect on what it was, that moment in life, or what was going on in your life that attracted you to becoming a chiropractor?
Yes. Oh, I love sharing this story. So thank you for the opportunity because my journey into chiropractic was not what I felt like was typical or not what was most common. So just a little bit of background. I worked actually at Logan for about 4 years after I graduated from that school. And so I had a very unique role. And one of the things I did there was I gave speeches to like tours that were coming through the campus. So as the group of prospective students and usually their parents or maybe their significant other, sometimes their children, were coming around the campus, one of the stops was in the clinic that I worked in. And because I was one of the people with the least seniority, I often got assigned to go talk to the people on tour. And I would always share my story with them about how I decided to go to chiropractic school. And I would listen to theirs too. And what I found was that my story was actually not very common, but most of them had chosen chiropractic as a career because they had some kind of life changing experience with a chiropractor or chiropractic care. And I didn't. I had actually only been to a chiropractor, um, gosh, I think like 3 or 4 times before I decided to go to chiropractic school. And when I was an undergrad, I studied business administration with an emphasis in marketing and retail management, and then changed my major to social work. So I had these two like educational paths that I had taken and didn't really know what I was doing with my life. But after I had finished my internship in retail management, I knew that was not really like fulfilling. Working in a pharmacy, for example, which is where I did my internship, and having to work nights, holidays, weekends, just really wasn't what I wanted for my life. So that was when I started to explore other options. Long story short, I graduated after studying these two different, what felt like two opposite ends of the spectrum, if you will. I was like, what am I going to do now? What do I do with this? And I kept encountering people that I had gone to either high school with or even undergrad with who had then gone on to school at Logan. And I just started hearing their experiences, and I was like, I don't know what this chiropractic thing is, but I think it could be something for me because I could own my own business as a chiropractor and I could help people. And so after about a year of that happening, where I was like having these encounters with people, just kind of like universe handing me someone else to show me this is the path to go on next, I decided to make the leap and do it. So that was like not a super exciting journey. There wasn't like a pivotal moment where I was shown very clearly that this was the path that I was meant to take. But this was definitely the path that I was meant to take. I know that for sure, even though it hasn't always looked the way that I thought that it was going to look.
Can you kind of speak to the social work major or the business administration major and maybe build a bridge between them and chiropractic, knowing what you know now with this awareness of all the opportunities that exist within the professional pathways that are available? Can you kind of maybe just speak to that social work major or to that business administration major and just maybe introduce them a little bit to how their interests actually do align with becoming a chiropractor?
So I graduated from chiropractic school in 2008. So that was 15 years ago. And at that time, most of my classmates had studied biology, human biology, anatomy, chemistry. They had kind of taken a pre-med route before chiropractic school. And so the basic sciences were harder for me, I felt like, than most of them because they had a base knowledge of what we were studying already. But I also thought it was really cool that I came into chiropractic school with a business administration degree and studied social work because I knew that those skill sets were going to help me in my career as a chiropractor. Obviously, if you choose to start your own practice, which the majority of chiropractors do, then you need to have some kind of education and training in running a business. Can I say that my business administration degree was all that useful? I didn't think so at the time, but in comparison to my classmates, let's say, I did feel like I was better prepared to run a business overall. And then, of course, the social work skills that I learned in those studies, they pay off immensely because so much of what we do with our patients and our clients is coaching them. It is asking them the right questions to get them to do the things that they know that they could be doing, but they're not doing, or just even committing to their care. And then, of course, there's also the emotional components of their musculoskeletal pain, which, in my opinion, we are doing a far better job of addressing now than we did 20 years ago when I was just starting chiropractic school. It was sort of this like woo spiritual concept that musculoskeletal pain could have an emotional component to it. Now it's just obvious. Like, of course, your emotions play a part into how you feel physically. Yeah, but being able to understand how people's emotions affect them physically, how people's emotions um, manifest into their physical body, how to protect ourselves as practitioners, um, as we care for people who are carrying so much stress and so much trauma in their bodies has been huge. It's taken me quite a long time really to learn how to embrace those skills as a chiropractor because like I said for most of my training and for the first almost decade of my career as a chiropractor, it was sort of taboo to go there and to talk about those things. Although so many people that I was seeing for back pain, neck pain, and headaches were not getting better, and were also living. Let me rephrase that. They would get better symptomatically, but something would always bring the symptoms back. And I started to ask myself, what else is there? What else is there? There's clearly more to this, to their healing than just what I can do as a chiropractor with adjustments or as I was trained, spinal manipulation.
Can you maybe speak to your training, the things that you gravitated towards, the skills that you really focused a lot of your effort and energy on as a student while you were developing?
You know what? Actually, I'd like to talk about what I didn't do as a student because for a variety of reasons, as a student in chiropractic school, I didn't want to be uncomfortable. Chiropractic school is very uncomfortable, though, in a lot of ways. It's very challenging academically and even physically because we're learning how to care for patients by taking care of each other, essentially. Sometimes we're doing great at that, and sometimes we're really not. And so I didn't want to have to be uncomfortable, and I didn't want to have to look stupid practicing adjusting my classmates in front of our instructors or even in front of other classmates. That was really awkward and uncomfortable for me. But there's no way that I have found to improve your adjusting skills than to just do it, even if you don't look like you know what you're doing in the beginning. So what I didn't do was I didn't practice enough. I didn't focus on building my skills outside of the classroom enough. I didn't really show up fully willing to receive criticism or feedback from my instructors or from my classmates because I was worried about what they might think or worried about looking like I didn't know enough. And as I worried about looking like I didn't know enough, I didn't know enough. So I really could have learned a lot more. I could have honed my skills in adjusting a lot more before I had finished school if I had just been willing to set aside my ego a bit and just really go there.
If you could coach a student, then maybe ask them or invite them to consider certain questions or to step outside their comfort zone, maybe just stretch them a little bit, how would you coach a student that's sort of entering chiropractic school to orient them to maybe some of the things that they're going to have to do that are uncomfortable, or some of the life lessons that you can maybe share with them that will ease their path a little bit.
Yeah. I think one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves in the beginning is, why are we doing this? Because it's a very big commitment. And I've talked with many people who later feel like, gosh, I don't know, was it the right decision for me to go to chiropractic school? Maybe I should have done this other thing instead. They've taken on a lot of student loan debt. That's the reality of, um, this career path for a lot of people, myself included. But at the end of the day, the student loan debt is ones and zeros. It's not even money that we're ever actually handed. It's literally digital transactions. Yet we make so much meaning out of having taken on that debt. And, there can be a lot of guilt, embarrassment, and shame attached to the amount of debt that we leave chiropractic school with. But if you are really clear on why you want to be a chiropractor, why a career in chiropractic is important to you, what will you be able to do in the world for the world when you have the credentials to work as a chiropractor? Then the ones and zeros and the digital transactions and your student loans are not that significant. Because, like I said, that money is not just money that someone handed to you that you then were irresponsible with. You're taking on, yes, a lot of debt, but you are also being given the opportunity to serve in an amazing way that is very unique and very different even in today's world.
What can you speak about, maybe the skills of writing, or the skills of speaking, or the skills of sales and marketing? I've heard oftentimes these 4 skills are very important when it comes to entrepreneurship, communication, being a great teacher. Can you maybe speak specifically to those skill sets, and maybe just invite students to go down the path of exploring different resources, or different prompts that you might have for students to polish some of those skills, or at least start to become familiar with them?
Well, I think that the most underrated skill set is the skill of selling, excuse me, because nobody wants to seem salesy, and most of us choose a profession like this because we really care about other people and we want to be of service, right? And we don't equate the two skills. We don't equate our skill as practitioners with the skill of being able to sell something that is actually good for people. So in order to be successful in building a business, especially, but oftentimes even as an associate doctor in another practice owner's business, you have to be able to sell not yourself, but you have to be able to sell the service that you're providing. So I think that's something that, especially for women, I see them get very, how can I say, emotionally dramatic in a sense about, oh, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want people to judge me. I don't want people to think that I'm just about the money. When the truth of the matter is that we're actually holding ourselves back, and we're holding ourselves back from helping other people when we're worried about what other people think about us. And so I see a lot of people struggle in business as associate doctors, even because they're so unable to learn that skill set. And if we can just embrace that we sell something that is really good for people, we sell something that can help change our communities and improve people's lives, why not learn how to be effective in that process? Then I think it helps to remove some of the emotional components that can hold us back.
And can you just unpack what it's been like as a woman to be a chiropractor, and maybe some of the observations that you've made in other women that you're either friends with or that are your peers, that women chiropractors uniquely experience, just so that we can speak to the prospective woman who's considering this path?
Yeah, absolutely. There seems to be one right way to be successful as a chiropractor. Start your own practice, see lots of patients, lots and lots and lots of patients. And for many people, that works well. And thankfully it does, right? Because they're able to make a big impact in their communities. They're able to help a lot of people know about chiropractic who otherwise maybe wouldn't. But for the rest of us, myself included, we need other models of success. We need other ways to be successful in chiropractic that's not just about the volume of patients that you see. And I would add to that, there's a misconception that if you don't see a lot of patients, you don't make a lot of money. And that does not have to be true at all. At all. In fact, a lot of clinics that look like they're making a lot of money are actually spending a lot of money. So really, the pursuit should be, well, if I get to decide, um, is your business profitable and are you happy and healthy? The profit of the business is a much different conversation than the total revenue that's generated by a business. And you could have a very small space that you work in. You could be the only employee of the business, and you could be taking home a lot of money in comparison to someone who is working 5 or 6 days a week, who has a ton of overhead, a huge team, and sees a lot of people, but doesn't take home much money. So be clear with yourself. What are you desiring? What is the outcome that you want to create? For some people, they really want that big clinic that has a lot of employees, that sees a lot of patients, and they'll continue to chip away at the business until, one day they're running a business that is highly profitable, hopefully. But I've seen many, many, many people over the last 15 years get themselves into situations that were not healthy for them for the long term because they've internalized this expectation that, like, for me to be successful in practice, it has to look this way. I've got to do it like they do it. Instead of what actually is your intrinsic definition of success in this career path. What do you want it to look like for yourself? And what will be sustainable for you? That sustainability piece is highly underrated and not talked about nearly enough, because you can go big, you can go hard, and you can go fast for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But will that matter if after those first 3 years, you're not practicing anymore because you blew out your shoulder? I would rather see us stay in practice longer, have longer, more successful careers for the long term than to go hard, go fast, and burn ourselves out.
That's deep. Yeah, no, that's a big one. Physical approaches are much more intense than other physical approaches, and students need to become aware of the type of approach they take in clinical practice is going to really speak loudly about the type of movements they're doing and the physicality of the practice. Can you speak more specifically to that work-life balance? You had said there was like 3 things. It was profit, happiness, and healthy.
Yes.
And can you maybe unpack those other 2 things? You talked about profitability and just how we need to be conscious of that piece. Maybe keeping our overhead low at first is one thing. Although I will say, when I talk to students that are just graduating, a lot of the times they're wanting to grow out of their space as opposed to grow into the space that they're moving into. And I'm also curious what your thoughts on that are, because I'm a much bigger proponent of growing into a space than growing out of a space. It's sometimes really hard to see 6 months down the line, but having an expectation based on what is meaningful to you, I think, is what students should start with. And if they want to see people and they want to generate a certain amount of income, I don't think they should be starting at 200 square feet, but that's just my perspective. I'm curious what yours is.
Well, in some ways I agree with you, in other ways I don't, because listen, there are some people that just don't have the privilege to have the access to start a business that affords for more than 200 square feet right from the start, right? So I'm a white woman in the Midwest. I I have a certain level of privilege, yes, But I also don't have parents who had any ability to help me start a business. They didn't fund any of my college. I had to do all of that on my own. And if I had had to rely on someone else to give me money to start a business, I probably wouldn't have ever started a business because I didn't have someone who trusted me enough to give me a startup loan, for example. And then once you finish chiropractic school with as much student loan debt as a lot of us do, it's really hard to get a business loan. So I'm a big proponent of people starting with what they have, even if that means you're a mobile practice, you practice out of your home, whatever it is that gets you going. It gets you momentum, it gets your confidence building and your skill set, both as a practitioner and a business owner. It gets you in the habit of treating people, adjusting people, and taking money for the service that you provide. And if you are smart with your money and you're not overspending, you're not spending beyond your means, then you can continue to grow into more from there. And I've done that myself. I actually started a practice where I did borrow money from a family member, and it was a small amount, and it got me going. And then I moved and changed locations. And that next practice, I didn't have the means that I had before to have a larger startup amount of money, but I wanted to get started, and I knew like where there's a will, there's a way. So I first started doing house calls, and I did that for maybe a month before I was like, okay, this is too much because I was growing really quickly and I didn't like driving. I live in a really rural place, so I had to drive long distances between one house to the next house. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm making money. Now I can afford to get a space. The business has some money. So then I rented a small room. It was probably 200 square feet, maybe less than that. And I just continued to grow from there. Eventually, after that, I transitioned to a home office because I had 4 kids, and it was just way easier to be at home with all my kids at home while I was treating patients there. So I've done it all. I've done the big thing. I've done, I've worked for someone else. I have had a mobile practice, a home office, and I've rented space. Um, Ultimately, it's like, what do you want? If you're clear about who you are and what you want, you can find a way to make it work. You can find a way not just to make it work, you can find a way to make it profitable, and you can be happy and healthy in the process. You have to be honest with yourself about what it is that you want, not think that what other people are doing is what you should do.
Does that tie into staying healthy and staying happy in practice?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because when you are doing what you think that you should be doing, not what you actually want to be doing, that's not very happy. And ultimately, the stress of trying to make yourself fit into some other definition of success or fit someone else's mold is exhausting.
Mhm. Can we shift or pivot now to you maybe sharing a little bit about the work that you've been up to, supporting other chiropractors, maybe even just supporting other business owners, but where did that inspiration come from? And can you maybe just describe um, aligned women and where that inspiration came from, but also give us an overview of how it's grown and what types of experiences it offers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Aligned Women was inspired by my children because when I had um, my children, I found it much harder to balance being a mother and being a business owner and taking care of all my patients and figuring out how to take care of myself at the same time than I ever had anticipated that it would be. Even though, some of my mentors in chiropractic were like, you're going to have this baby and you're not going to want to come back to practice. And I was like, why would I? Why? I love my career. Why would I not want to come back to work? But then I had the baby and realized like, your physiology changes. You are wired then to nurture and be close to this little human. So it really did change everything for me. But it took me quite a long time to accept that motherhood had changed what I wanted for my career in chiropractic. I did want to have multiple clinics, multiple locations throughout the city, and be the go-to expert for sports chiropractic in my community. But once I became a mom, that was not really my priority anymore. I kept trying to make it my priority I kept trying to follow through on the commitments I had made prior to having my first daughter, but it just wasn't working anymore. It was exhausting, and I really wanted to be able to be more present with her at that time. So, long story short, that was when I transitioned. I sold my practice. I moved to a different location. I started a mobile practice. I did things very differently so that I was able to be working part-time hours and also profitable in my practice very quickly, which allowed me to be present with my kiddos. At that time, there were two, the way that I wanted to be. And eventually I started teaching other women what I was doing, and then it led to a membership program, which we now call Align Women.
And can you maybe just speak about what it's like to shift from being in practice to having like I guess you would call it a passion project at first that develops into a full-on business, what that entails, and how do you recommend that students consider that if that's their calling? How is that able to be balanced? Because that seems to be a theme here.
That's a great question, and there's a lot to say about that. With the technology that we have available today through the internet and social media, we can reach so many people. We can impact so many lives. It is something that I think is like we're just scratching the surface in chiropractic. What does it mean to be a chiropractor in today's digital world, right? What does it mean to be a chiropractor when we can help people without actually putting our hands on them? And is it chiropractic enough? Are you principled enough as a chiropractor if you have an online business, for example, and you never actually adjust people? Is that okay? Well, who gets to decide that? Ultimately, you and your state board get to decide that. So it's not for everyone. I think that people get distracted in practice sometimes when they're frustrated with how the business is going. They know that they love taking care of their patients. They love what they do as a chiropractor, but the business can be really challenging. And so then they're looking for other ways to make money. And running an online business of some kind can be one of those distractions where it's like, well, this business isn't working out so well. Let me go start this other business instead. That's a huge red flag to me, because the skill sets from one business to another business to the next business are generally the same. You have to be relatively skilled in marketing and sales to run a successful business, period. End of story. Doesn't matter what the business is. And so I've seen this happen many, many times where people are like, I'm just not happy with how this business is going. I'm going to start a different one instead. But what's really lacking is, as I talked about before, the ability and the willingness to learn marketing and sales skill sets. So if you feel solid with those things and you feel called to go, in a unique or different direction with your career and utilize technology or social media or whatever that might be, then go for it. As long as it's legal and ethical.
Can you maybe give some pointers or tips for people that are listening to this? A lot of them are not very experienced, maybe have no experience in marketing and sales. Can you kind of just give some strategies or like where to start or just what to really sink your teeth into, where to focus your energy if you're wanting to put some effort into getting better at marketing and sales?
I think that the most important thing that you can do, the easiest, simplest thing you can do, and the lowest cost thing you can do is just talk to people about what you do. Talk to people about what you're learning while you're in chiropractic school. Don't be afraid to talk to your family, your friends, from before or outside of chiropractic school about what chiropractic is. It doesn't mean, by the way, that you should try to convince them or convert them that chiropractic is the one and right way, the one and only way, but just out of curiosity, right? That you're wanting to share with them what you are learning, what it is that you'll be doing, can make a big difference. I think in the ideal scenario, and I've seen very, very few, if any, people actually do this, although I've been talking about it for 6 years now. In the best case scenario, while you're in chiropractic school, you would start growing your own social media following. And people are often looking at me like I have five heads when I say that, but it doesn't mean that you're, giving patients advice through your Instagram account. You can just be like sharing who you are, what you do, what you're learning, what you're passionate about, and growing a following early on so that when you finish school, and if, for example, you're going to start your own business, you already have a base of people who know you, like you, trust you. They know what you've been up to. They've been following your journey. And it's free. All you have to do is show up. All you have to do is have the willingness to put yourself out there, and you're good. Just keep showing up consistently.
I like that advice. That's really good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Just to give you context, module 4 of the pre-Chiro project is start your own pre-Chiro club, which means that you're going to have to establish a presence not only on your college campus, but also online potentially, making connections with your guidance counselors and your teachers who are interfacing with students who want to go into healthcare and are maybe not quite clear on what the right path for them is. I think that's how we'll establish a presence for chiropractic on college campuses, is through the power of students to be challenged to step up and express themselves and market, shall we say, their chiropractic clubs on their college campus and do campaigns or different creative activities that spark interest, because creativity is really it's attractive. And I'm just wondering if you can maybe guide any pre-Chiro clubs out there that are listening to this on maybe some activities that they can consider working on, or projects they could work on together, or anything that comes to mind.
Well, I think that ideally, you would focus on a project that you're intrinsically motivated or excited about, right? So I could say like pick a charity and do a fundraiser or something for that charity. But if you're not intrinsically excited about that, it'll probably fall flat, and it's not something that will be an ongoing long-term endeavor or effort, because you don't really want to be doing it in the first place. So if you have a thing that you are passionate about, then it's easy to just follow that passion, right? So if your project includes starting a social media account and growing a following or an audience on your social media account, and you love rock climbing and you also happen to go to chiropractic school, then talk about rock climbing on that account, right? What you're excited about is what will magnetize people to you. It doesn't mean that your whole account has to be about rock climbing. It could be if you wanted it to be. It doesn't have to be. I think rock climbing comes to my mind because I knew some students in chiropractic school that were really into rock climbing.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any sort of thoughts on this whole concept of there being a new cohort, a new audience, a new group of people who are labeled pre-Chiro students, and pre-Chiro becoming an actual field of study, shall we say, that is expected of you if you're going into chiropractic school? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that is absolutely a yes. Like I said, I had a business administration and social work background in my education before chiropractic school, and it was hard for me. I got through, and I got through with decent grades. I didn't graduate with honors, but I wasn't far off either. It was hard. But if I had known previously that I wanted to go to chiropractic school and there was a program that would have prepared me well for it, I would have been far better off in the long term. I think school would have been a lot less stressful, and I would have been able to spend more time honing my skills as a chiropractor, not just studying for exams.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think we need to ask new questions. I'm curious for you, having your finger on the pulse of practicing chiropractors, people that you're just watching and observing patterns throughout the years. Can you maybe, you mentioned a little bit before about like being a chiropractor in 2023 is there is a digital component potentially to it, maybe not, but I'm just curious where you see the profession going, or maybe some of the challenges that graduates are facing that they could use a lot of help with from more experienced people, or just by asking better questions of themselves.
one of our biggest challenges in our profession still, even after 20 years now of being in this profession as a student or as a as a practicing doctor, is that we don't all agree on the direction of our profession. We don't all agree on where it should be going. And so it creates divide. Um, that being said, I don't think that it's possible for all of us to agree. Instead of waiting, though, for the schools and the associations to have a cohesive message, I think we need to create our own cohesive message internally. You need to know who you are and why you're doing this so that you can go take that to the world and be strong in it, despite what's going on with the institutions and the systems that can't get it together. It's very unlikely at this point that they're going to have a clear, concise, consistent, cohesive direction that everyone is working toward, because there's so many different approaches to chiropractic, but that's also the beauty of it. So I've settled at this place of like, instead of hoping and wishing for something that hasn't happened historically ever, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to be the best at it, because nobody can stop me from doing that except for myself.
And can you maybe just in a nutshell unpack what that has been for you? Like, what have you arrived at in your awareness of what you love to be doing, and just honing and you know, laser sharp focus on that?
It's always changing and evolving, but really, I work with the civilizations above the Atlas, as one of my mentors once told me. She worked with the civilizations above the Atlas, and I was like, nobody taught me that in chiropractic school. Okay, but that was a way for me to see that, you know, my path has been unique in chiropractic on purpose, because my social work skills, for example, have been a huge component of how I work with people as a coach. And I am really, really skilled because I've had over 3,000 hours of one-to-one coaching. I've gotten really, really good at it because I've done it so much. And I've done it now in an official capacity as well as an unofficial capacity for over 20 years. So, you know, while in school, I could have been focusing on becoming a better adjuster, and I wasn't. I do have a very unique skill set now that I have given a lot of time to. So I think I'm probably like saying the same thing over again in a different way, but I it feels like my life's mission to help empower each person to go on their own path, to really own who it is that they are and be themselves truly, authentically, with integrity, because that is where you will shine. That is where you will bring your gifts to the world. Um, Gifts that your instructors couldn't teach you in chiropractic school, because you're bringing them through you. No one has taught them to you, but
Mhm.
you discover them. You create them through your own practice.
Mhm. I really appreciate you taking time to just share any insights that you can. I know that you do sound like your message has been consistent throughout this interview, which is that students need to focus on themselves, know who they are, get
Mhm.
really clear, and be in integrity with whatever those steps forward look like. You've mentioned mentors a couple times, and that is a real key component to chiropractic. Like, we don't have residency programs, but there is this unofficial sort of apprentice-like path that most students take, where they're getting mentored during their school breaks, or they have a local chiropractor that they go and they pick their brain, or they just observe them in practice. Can you maybe just reflect on some of your mentors and some of the ways that they helped your path?
Yeah, I think my mentors, having been all males, showed me a lot of what I didn't want to do. Not that because what they were doing was wrong, but I saw their example, and I thought, well, this is what I need to do. I need to model their example. But it just didn't fit for me. And it took me a long time to accept that, you know, what my mentors had shown me wasn't going to be my path. I really wanted it to be. I really did, because that's that's what I saw as like the good thing to do, the right way to go, and how to be successful. Um, Defining your own path, creating your own path, creating your own definition of success is a lot harder because no one can do it for you. You have to figure it out for yourself. But that's not to say, oh, it's not important to have mentors. It's not important to shadow in practices. Absolutely, yes, it is. Even if what you are learning is what you don't want to do, right? It helps you clarify so much of like what works for you and what doesn't, what feels good for you and what doesn't. So it's so, so important to spend time in established practices, existing practices, so that you can see examples, even if it doesn't feel like it's exactly what you want. That's actually a good thing.
So as we wrap up here, I would love to just keep going on the creative tips. So we've got the League of Chiropractic Women, we have Aligned Women, we have Chiro Women of Color, we have womenchiropractors.org,
Yeah.
we have probably, Her Story instead of His Story, Her Story. There's a number of different sub-communities that have obviously their own independent organization, but if we were creating a collaborative dialogue, or if we were creating a collaborative project to try and highlight all of these communities and really just shine a light on maybe the opportunities that are there, or just embracing and celebrating our women communities in chiropractic, can you maybe just speak on the richness of what you've witnessed within the community of chiropractic women these days?
Yeah.
And also maybe if you have any directive or direction on how we can kind of work together moving forward, that would be awesome too.
Mm, it has definitely grown. I think over the last, what has it been, 7 years, only two of those organizations existed prior to the last 7 years. I could be wrong, so take that for what you will. So as we have created a call for more diversity and inclusion in our profession, it has improved. We have seen improvements. We still have a long way to go. Um, we've seen, more options become available for women in chiropractic, but now we need to create more options for people of color and people in the LGBTQ community, and right, so that we can also help improve access to chiropractic for those kinds of communities outside of the chiropractic profession. So I think, well, I'll share this. In 2020, I had a moment of awakening, we'll say, where I was like, oh, I've been advocating for women in chiropractic for several years now, but I hadn't seen the possibility of advocating for other types of minorities in chiropractic. And I had a huge blind spot to wake up to see how much better we can actually do to create a diverse and inclusive culture in our profession for everyone, not just men versus women, right? For everyone. And so that was 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And I'm still learning. I'm still discovering what is my contribution, and how do I believe that others can contribute to that call as well. But overall, we are making improvements. We are.
Definitely. I appreciate you just trying to give me some energy around that, because one of the components of this project is we're creating an ecosystem of information, and we want to make it really easy and accessible for women or neurodiverse populations, or women of color, animal chiropractors, whoever you can identify in the profession. We want to make it easy for them to find their tribe, or find their community, or connect with like-minded people. So how would you sort of invite people to Aligned Women? How would you describe that community, that tribe? What types of people are in there? What are the ways that people can maybe get involved or access that?
Well, Aligned Women has evolved in a way of its own now so that we support women outside of chiropractic, but also in professions that are similar. So things like acupuncture, Reiki, reflexology, massage therapy, physical therapy, nutrition, even astrology, grief counseling, etc. The best place to connect with me and to just learn more about what I do and how I serve is on Facebook, firstly, or Instagram if you like Instagram better. But mostly Facebook. I now officially have a, what is it called? A creator profile. I've gotten upgraded to from just a regular human, I guess, to a creator profile. So I can I can connect with a lot of people on Facebook.